Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm so excited to be your co-host, Kathy Groover.
And I'm Jason Mefford. And today we have a fun episode for you because, you know, there's a movie called Horrible Bosses. You've seen that, right, Kathy?
Oh, huge Jason Bateman fan. I've absolutely seen Horrible Bosses.
Yes. That is a fabulous movie. And I love too, you know, Jennifer Aniston always played like the cutesy kind of girl, you know, in Friends. And this movie was like a totally different role for her.
Yep.
But it was one of those where, you know, you're just laughing. And I think it's so funny because so many of us can relate to working for horrible bosses.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the question to start off is, some of those horrible bosses don't actually realize they're horrible bosses. So the question could be are you being a horrible boss?
Wait, me?
Not you. I'm just talking in general. Of course you're not. And of course I'm not, right?
No.
But anyway, so thought we'd talk a little bit today about leadership because I think it's, you know, especially working a lot in the corporate world, really since the Second World War, corporate America has been military command and control kind of leadership. Okay. It's beating people with a stick. It's, you know, instilling the fear of God in them that if they don't do everything right, they're going to get into trouble. And what we have seen is that is a broken model and no longer works. In fact, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this, and, you know, they were saying, yeah, you know, especially younger people, they don't just listen because you have a title.
Yeah.
Well, duh, we never should have been, right? So thought we'd talk a little bit about that and how, you know, leadership is really, when I teach this to people, at first they're kind of like, why are we talking about this? Because what I'll tell you is leadership is an inside out game. It happens from the inside out. So we'll go through and talk a little bit about that. But, you know, Kathy, I'm sure you've probably worked with some people over time that have had some of those personality traits, right? Yeah. And are they very effective?
You know what? I have to say, it depends on who you're leading. Mm-hmm. Because there are some people that really simply just want to follow. They want to have orders barked at them and they want to be a yes man and they just sort of go with that. I think that model is fading, and I think we can thank the millennials for that because they're so into work-life balance, they're so into culture, you know, the work culture, they're so into consciousness. And there was some ad I just saw on TV. I don't even remember what the ad was for. It was for a product, but at the end of it, they said, we're expanding nationwide and we are hiring. We offer great wages, great benefits, flexible work schedule, enhanced work culture. And I was like, what? It was the first time I have ever heard a company saying, we're going to give you good culture. And I thought, wow, this is the shift. And that comes from the leadership. That comes from who's in charge, and it trickles down to everybody else. So it not only comes inside out, it comes from the top down. And I think we have to remember that too. And are there some like old school people that seriously just want to have orders barked and go, yes, yes, yes? Sure. I think that's a breed that's dying out though. So I think we have to start to convert to what people's mentality and what people's you know, affinity is now for how they'd like to be led.
Well, it is. I think it is. Like you said, it's dying out. And I guess one thing before we get into it too very far, right, is, you know, you're right. Some people prefer to be led by somebody who is kind of barking orders at them. Some people like that. Some leaders, that is their personality more, right? That's just the kind of person that they are. Yep. They feel more comfortable with that.
Yep.
Where the struggle comes in, and I see this with lots of people, is a lot of leaders don't want to be the person barking orders, but that's all they've ever been taught.
True.
That's what they're expected to do. And it kills them on the inside, right? Because they know that what they're doing is being manipulative, it's using fear, it's using coercion, and they hate themselves for doing that to other people.
Yeah.
And so, I work a lot with leaders, executive leaders, and I've seen this over and over again where when you feel like that, right, that's that cognitive dissonance that we've talked about before, right, is you're acting in a way that's not in alignment with who you are.
Yeah.
And anytime we act in a way that is not in alignment with who we are, it kills us on the inside. We feel guilty. We feel ashamed, right? All of these negative emotions that we shouldn't be feeling, we're feeling those things, right? And so it's time, in my opinion, and my opinion really counts, by the way, right?
That does.
It does. That it's time for us to just quit using that old broken model and actually embrace being, an authentic leader that actually leads with love. Right. There's a word you normally don't hear in corporate America leadership, but with love.
Yeah.
And that we persuade and influence people instead of trying to coerce them. We're not using a stick to beat on them. We're using rewards and carrots, right? And go.
Well, one I was going to say, and I love that. And to that point, one of the signs of a good leader is adaptability. And you need to be able to lead different people. If you have one of those like old school people who want that, then you have to do that for them. They're going to see you coming at them with kindness and love and be so confused that like, what are you complimenting me for? Just
I'm not going to let you give me a hug. What are you talking about?
No. But you have to be able to lead each team, each person, each individual, because we can't change anybody else. Oh, if we could, we have to adapt our styles to fit those people that we're interacting with, and then hopefully bring them along. So I love what you're saying about, shifting your leadership style, because if that's what the employees, the staff, the team needs, you have to be able to provide that for them.
Yeah. Well, and that bringing them along, right? Because you're NLP trained. So you understand about rapport, right? And most people do not, which is one of the reasons why I teach what I call neural influence, right? Using some of those techniques from NLP to help that leader be adaptable, bring people along with them by using some little Jedi or ninja tricks, right? That's really kind of what NLP is in a way.
Absolutely,
Once you learn it, then you understand how to ask questions, how to use your body language, how to use your voice, other things like that to get people to come along and really get them to realize, or come to the change or the decision on their own.
Yeah.
So that they end up, there's no resistance because they believe, and really it is their own decision on what they end up doing.
Yeah.
So, and again, this comes back to, anybody can go read a leadership book, read all the books you want. It ain't going to help you be a better leader, right? It might give you some ideas, but really leadership is more about being the leader.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of talked before about, one thing that I tell people a lot is, especially if they're experiencing like resistance or some kind of negative, what we would consider a negative behavior from somebody, is pick up the mirror. Okay. Because most of the time people are just mirroring back what we are giving off. Right? You're nodding your head, right? So, so if somebody's being a horse's butt, well, guess what? You're probably being a horse's butt too, right?
Yeah.
And so to help change that person or change the situation, we have to work on changing ourselves first.
Yep. I was just going to say that. And so often I love the hold the mirror up because so often what triggers us of, oh, I can't stand when they do that. It's something that we don't like in ourselves. It's triggering actually a reaction in ourselves because we see that too. And, we do that too. And we don't like that to some degree or another. And the other thing you're talking about, changing ourselves, we have to be present. And I talk about presence in leadership, because if you're not truly present with what the people around you need, with what they're saying, if you're not listening, if you're not actually hearing them, you could do the active listening thing of, but if you're daydreaming or finishing their sentence or thinking about lunch or I went to go home and play games with my kids, then you're not actually present. And if you're not present, you're not going to be getting all the input that you need to be a better leader. So it's about presence, it's about listening, and it's about really taking a sometimes hard look at yourself to say, why is that triggering me? What in myself does that bring up?
Yeah, well, and it, in that of kind of being present and kind of feeling or knowing what the other people are experiencing. Some people talk about or use the term emotional intelligence. Well, that's part of it, right? But you can only be emotionally intelligent if you're present and you're actually picking up on what is actually going on.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing about, I talk about emotional intelligence, but I don't use that as a term like so many people do. I like intuitive leadership instead.
Nice.
But it's there's a couple of misconceptions with emotional intelligence, which is, I think the first biggest one is most people think, yep, I'm going to learn how to be more emotionally intelligent so I can control other people's emotions. Yes, there is a piece to that. But again, if you go back, read Dan Goleman's book, look at some of the stuff that's out there, there's really about 5 steps to, or stages, things are related to emotional intelligence. 4 of the 5 are about you. Only 1 is about, identifying and understanding the emotions in others.
Yeah.
So it really does all start with ourself.
Absolutely.
And there's that whole thing. I don't know if you ever got taught this, but if I point to you, Kathy, what am I doing? I'm pointing 3 fingers back to me.
Yeah.
Right. So every time you point, we're actually pointing more to ourself. So that's probably why we should start with ourself.
But that's hard, Jason.
It is hard.
So for somebody that is maybe raised in an environment that was, hard-ass leadership and, that sort of drilled into you militant, military sort of thing, how do you start to shift that? Is it just awareness that that's even what it is, and then you start to change from there? I mean, for someone who's stuck in that old-fashioned way of leadership that needs to change, how do you even begin with that person?
Well, the first part is some awareness, right? Because again, unless we're aware, we don't know. Right. But if we stop at awareness, then all we then do, all right, all we do is feel guilty at that point, right? We're aware, but we're not doing anything about it. That leads to more guilt and shame.
Yeah.
But once you become aware of it, then you need help. Okay. And like you said, it's hard to do leadership the right way because it takes work on your part.
Right.
That's why I run a program where it's teaching people concepts, having them practice the concepts, right? Because until we actually practice and incorporate it, we're not going to actually learn it and change and do things different. And so, that's part of it. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's hard at first, right? Just like anything else is hard right at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Now I'll tell you, because that point too is most leaders are lazy. Okay. And what do I mean by that? It's very easy to pick up a stick and beat people to get them to do something. It's easy to do that. And so that's why so many people actually will default back to that, right? Because it's easier to do in the short term.
Yeah.
But the minute you quit beating people with the stick, what happens? You've lost it, right? And that's the whole difference between external based power versus internal based power as well, right?
Yeah.
So leaders that are doing the command and control, that are beaten with the stick, that are using fear, that's external power. Using your title, wearing, a uniform. It might not be a uniform, but maybe it's a custom suit, right? Those external strappings
Yep.
don't last long. So again, pick any favorite dictator from history.
Oh, what would my favorite be? I'm kind of a Napoleon girl, I think.
Are you Napoleon? Okay, so again,
so, yeah.
Napoleon, right? Hitler, Stalin, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of people that you can point to, but as an example, most of the classic dictators use external power.
Sure.
They use fear to stay in control.
And they're narcissists. And we've mentioned narcissists. I think we should do an entire show on narcissists and narcissistic personality disorder, but they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
No.
And that's the challenge with that. And I think we're speaking to those leaders who want to be better, not the ones who are just so filled with ego and narcissism that they can't even see that there's anything wrong. Narcissists don't point like that. They point like that. Everything's about other people. They can't admit that anything's wrong that they would have possibly done to everybody else. It's the only way they can soothe their own ego and stop from feeling so shameful. So we're not necessarily talking about that.
No, but to people that, again, because like you said, unless you actually recognize it or acknowledge it to begin with, you don't know to change, right? But once you can do that, then it's like, okay, would you rather be one of those dictator kind of leaders, or would you rather be an internal power leader?
Absolutely.
So again, some great examples of that would be people like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, right? Okay, so that gives you the dichotomy of, on the far ends of the scale. So now decide, which kind of leader do you want to be? Yeah. And so a lot of the whole ideas of servant leadership, some of these different terms that have come up over time, that's more what the internal power focused leader is like.
Yeah.
And so if you want the long-term results, you got to do the work. But, what that means too is that the people that work with you and for you love you. They will follow you into battle, figuratively speaking, right? To pull in the military metaphor again. But there's so much more satisfaction from being a leader, working with people who respect and love each other, than being a leader who is feared.
Right, sure. Because it gives you that feeling of wanting to be there, of freedom of choice, of that autonomy, as opposed to, well, I guess I better do that or I'm going to get yelled at. It's about cooperation and working as a team, as opposed to just being ordered about and being miserable and unhappy and resentful. And, that's when mistakes happen and you don't have that loyalty. You don't have that. People come back again and again. You have high turnover. It costs you more money. You've got to keep training people. It benefits you to be a conscious leader.
Well, it does. And it's so much easier in the long run to do it too, right? That cognitive dissonance that we talked about at the beginning, that goes away, right? The resistance from people, okay, you're always going to have some resistance, but it's going to be less, right? Because all of a sudden you're not going to get as much pushback from people. But also, just from a general kind of satisfaction standpoint, watching people grow, watching people flourish in their job or their career that work with you, that's where the gold is in leadership. And you don't get to feel that the other side. But when you take that inside out approach, you really do get to actually feel that as well. You feel like you're actually making a change and doing good in this world. And there is nothing like having that joy and gratitude feeling of doing that.
I agree. Oh, what a good conversation, as always.
So that's what we were talking about today. So again, if you're the narcissistic dictator, you're probably going, these people are full of shit. Okay, well, move on.
Yeah.
Right. But if
stop, flip through to the next one.
Go to the next one. But if you're one of those people, again, that wants to actually become a better leader, more internally focused, more loving, more, all of the stuff that we've been talking about, then you can do it. Yeah. Right. There's ways to do it. Reach out, let me know. But there's ways to do it. There's skills you can learn, little tools that you add to your toolbox that will make your life much, much easier.
Yeah. And the life easier of those people around you. And when they're happy employees are better employees, right? So.
More productive and they're more profitable, right? As well. There's been a lot of studies on both of those. Yeah. Yep. Well, at the end of the day, the money catches up to it.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yay. What a great conversation. How can people reach you, Jason?
Well, they can reach me on my website, jasonmefford.com.
Never heard that before.
They can find me there. And, we're always on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. I mean, I'm any place. Type my name in Google and you're going to find me. It's pretty easy to find me and just reach out and I'll let you know next steps, what you can do.
Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation. Leadership is so important. And even if you're not leading a team, like I don't have employees, but I still need to be a good leader when I'm coaching, when I'm dealing with people out in the society and community. So it affects everybody. So I'm Kathy Groot. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say all of us are leaders.
Yeah.
Whether you have people under you or not, because it's personal as well as business related.
Absolutely.
Leadership. Yeah.
I completely agree. Cool. I'm Kathy Groover. I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. Go out, have a great week, and start becoming a better leader. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.